Hi, thanks for coming by. In the previous posts I discussed in a general, broad-based way critical thinking, the media, how you get your news and information, what you make of it, and it's really important. And I just laid out a foundation, and I did that because what I want to do is get into this next subject, what's going on currently, and I want to name names. I want to talk about the situation, and so that's what this is going to be about. Before I do that, I want to make a pitch, and the pitch is this. I'm putting out content here that I want to be valuable for you. Okay, and if it's touching something that's important in you, if this is making a difference to you, and I hope it is, I want you to subscribe to it. I want to grow this community. I need your help. Tell somebody, tell a friend, and this is a work in progress. And I expect that this will grow in a very important and relevant and useful and valuable way. So I'll leave you with that. I'd like you to keep paying attention and sharing what we're doing here. Okay. Now, as to the current situation, it's 3 weeks since the presidential election, and it went down in a remarkable way that was pretty predictable, and it was predictable because the way that the election was handled, and it's pretty much differently in different states. What happened with the pandemic and the COVID situation created an opportunity for those who wanted to go in this direction, and they certainly weren't supportive of Trump. It was supportive of Biden, the liberals versus the conservatives, the left versus the right, and the introduction of mail-in ballots. Now, there are many states that were doing that already, but they had been doing it for a while, and they developed a system. And now this was going to go in a scaled way that had never been done before. And the obvious thing was that by doing it, and because it was new, it was going to create opportunity for voter fraud. Now, let's talk about voter fraud in a general way and then apply it specifically. Voter fraud is something that happens all the time. And the issue with voter fraud is more about whether it's contained enough to where it's not a major problem. But saying that, it's sort of like, well, how many leaks do you want to have? If you're sailing on a yacht, how many leaks are acceptable to you? And if you look aside when it starts to leak, and you think, well, it's not that bad, we can cross this body of water and we'll take on some water, but it won't be that bad. At what point does it become where it'll sink the ship? And so it begs the question that if there's weaknesses in the system, you don't want to just allow those weaknesses to go on. The other thing that's come up was this whole idea of voter suppression, which is, it's interesting, but politically, what it was intended to do was really to get as much control over the situation in terms of if you have whatever political party is, to have as many people would vote for your political party, and currently there were more people who would default vote Democratic than they would Republican, and as many people as you can get into the voter rolls would it was calculated, estimated that it would benefit Democrats more than Republicans. Now, it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be situations that it couldn't be different, but here we are talking about the leak again. How much of the leak is acceptable? Okay, and the answer ought to be that wherever you find it, it's never acceptable. And so with the notion of voter suppression was the idea that you'd have to have voter ID to be allowed to vote, and it got a lot of pushback from Democratic faction, and the estimation was that if they didn't have to have voter ID, they would have more opportunity to collect more votes, for the Democratic side. The other thing had to do with ballot harvesting, and there are many other things that together comprehensively, creates an integrity problem for the election. So, Donald Trump has been a very polarizing figure in culture, and he's also been a very harmonizing figure, depending on your, how you view your politics. At any rate, he's a very powerful, charismatic, and quite effective as a politician. And in politics, I mean, you do whatever it takes to win. And having said that, it's like, well, what do you mean by whatever? Well, it should become a point when, for integrity reasons, that you should win. If you're going to win, you win with integrity and at a certain value set that has people, the electorate, be able to have confidence in who they elected. So Donald Trump certainly raised the issue when of full-scale mail-in balloting was going to be the way this election was conducted. And what happened was the election occurred, and there were things that happened when there was like the stopping vote counting in certain states, and ballot harvesting, and the voter rolls. I mean, all of those kinds of things. And the numbers came in, and there was a switch that happened. There was this thing called the red mirage, which was something phenomena they had seen in previous elections, where Republicans were winning at the end of the evening on election night, and in the morning or days later they lost because there was votes that came in against them. So the idea that any person on the side where you're losing, and you lose with those dynamics going on, if you raise the issue and say, there's something amiss here, and it needs to be corrected. Well, that's what Trump did. Trump raised all those issues, and he hasn't conceded the election, and it's his right not to do it, to concede at this point. I think states are just beginning to certify, but not all the certifications have been made. And, I've been saying this before, we're getting a civics lesson as to, governance and election law, and that the elections are determined by the state legislatures. And so because of all of those procedural matters that were that are there for the sake of voter integrity and election integrity, that's now being challenged. Now, human nature would be that if you have an opportunity to get the candidate that you want to win, maybe voter integrity means less. It's just so long as you can get your person in. And it's understandable, but the way I'm saying it, it should be obvious that there's a huge flaw in that, because then it's all about do whatever you can do to get your person elected into office and sworn in, and it doesn't matter whether it's a legitimate vote that reflects the true desires of the electorate. And of course, that gets lost when you're so passionate and determined to have your person in office. Of course, the problem with that is it's short-sighted, because even if today you favor that just because you'll get your person in, it'll go against you sooner or later. It could go against you in the next election cycle. So Trump's the kind of person who, because of his being elected into office, and because of the way his personality, his style of governance, because he's a fighter. If you cross him, he will push back. We have an opportunity here because of his personality, because of the way he has governed so far, we have an opportunity to take a look and maybe clean up if we're wise about it, and if we understand what's at stake. We have an opportunity to clean up what's been going on in elections for a long time. All of the corruptions that were there, we have a chance to do a reset. So I expect, if this is played out, going through all the remedies or procedures that are available to Trump and his administration and his team, that if it plays out, that he can make the case that this election should go to Congress. That's a whole nother procedural kind of a thing. That's if the 270 votes aren't reached through by the way of the Electoral College, that that will open up things that have a chance to clean things up a lot. If he's unable to do that, it's all good in terms of the attempt being made to show what's going on in our electoral procedure and to root out any corruption that's there, any systematic corruption, any corruption that's just there because it's the way it's always been done. Given Trump's nature and profile, if all those cards are played, I expect he has no problem at that juncture conceding that he can move out of office. You don't have to force him out, but there's something that needs to be played out, and the passions are running high, and its patience should run higher than the passions. It's fascinating to see how this is being played out. I'm curious, and I'm actually grateful that we'll be looking at these kinds of things. And should Trump not be able to prevail in the case that he's making, so be it. And I have no doubt that everybody will accept that. But campaigning for ideas will go on, and there'll be another election cycle. So I want to leave you with that now. And as I always say to you, best to you and all good things.